Today we have a special edition or episode of our program Dialogue and a special guest. In this episode, I'm going to be talking with Hamid Taqoui, the leader of the Worker Communist Party of Iran, to shed some light on the events in Iran, in Iraq, political landscape in the Middle East. Welcome, Hamid Taqoui.
Thank you.
Hamid, to give our viewers in Iraq an introduction about the Worker Communist Party of Iran, I would like to say a few words. The Worker Communist Party of Iran was established in 1991, and this party has a different vision, has a different approach to Marxism, has a different approach to socialism. It bases society at the heart of its activities. It bases the people in the heart of its activities. And through the struggles in the early 90s and through different organizations that the party founded itself upon, and through the Berlin Wall toppling, the great events or the great historical events that almost ended the 20th century, the fall of the Soviet Union, this party formed an element of hope to humanity, a new dawn for humanity. Hamid Taqoui, if I may ask you to give the viewers in Iraq and around the world, because this is also run in English, a little bit of a background about the Worker Communist Party of Iran. What are the bases of its foundation? Why is it different? And why do you put the word worker in its title?
Yes, as you just mentioned, our party established in 1991, and it was the same time as the collapse of Soviet Union. So that was a big event, as you said in the word, and we just wanted to say the word that the communism is not what happened in Russia. The collapse of Soviet Union is not the end of socialism or the end of communism or Marxism, as everybody was saying at that time, as all the media is saying that, oh, okay, that's the end. That's the end of communism. Even that's the end of history, if you remember. The philosophers said that's the end of class struggle. That's the end of history. And everything's going to be fine. Just every corner of the world would enjoy a new life, a new freedom, that sort of rubbish. And we wanted to say, no, that's not the case. Communism is alive. What happened in Russia has nothing to do with socialism, with communism, with the freedom of people, and so on and so forth. And we want to prove it. We want to show it by establishing a new party with a new name. That's the reason that we have the worker in our name, Worker Communist Party, meaning it's a communism that has nothing to do with nationalism, with religion, with any other bourgeois or upper class mentality or doctrine that we know that all during the 20th century, we had different branches of communism that were those elements in them. You had nationalism, you had even religion, you had different doctrines, liberalism, everything, but you didn't have the worker communism, as we wanted to show the world that that's the thing. That's the main reason. I mean, it was an answer to what happened in Russia. And just let me add that, you can look at the collapse of Soviet Union in two ways, a positive factor or a negative factor. The negative is, of course, that all the world said that that's the end of communism. So nobody has to go with the banner of socialism. It is done. It is defeated. It is dead. That's the, of course, negative factor. The positive factor, as we saw it, was that all the, so to speak, communism that had nothing to do with socialism, had nothing to do with emancipation of workers or the society, they were no longer a problem for us, it is done. It is collapsed, and nobody was talking about that anymore. So we had a new era now that we could give the meaning to communism as we thought that it should be. So we didn't have to go that all the way, say people that, Russia is not communism. Russia has nothing to do. Russia gone. Russia is a capitalism now. So in a way, it was a positive factor. So we just relied on that positive aspect, and tried to establish a new kind of communism, a very active, based on humanity, based on seeing the society as a whole and working class as a force that can change the society and make everything, every aspect of the society based on the goals and the demands and the future of humanity, all people in the society. That was what we tried to do, and I think we did it a lot during the last 20 or so years. We had a long way to, still we have a long way to go on, but we established the basics, and we are on a good position now to go on.
Can you shed some light about why do you distinguish yourselves from the Soviet Union or the other schools of communism?
I should clarify that we are talking about the worker communism or new communism as different from the 20th century, most of the branches of communism. In a way, it's not new. We go back to Marxism. We go back to that sort of communism that we have manifesto on it, So it's not a new way of looking at the world in a way that is different from what Marx was saying or what communism in 19th century was representing. It's the other way. We go back to that. Because during the 20th century, after what happened in Russia in a few years with Stalinism there and with state capitalism there, and what happened in China, which was a bourgeois actually revolution against imperialism and against feudalism in China. That was objectively, that was the content of revolution there. But it was under the banner of communism. Why? Because communism was popular. After the October Revolution, every branch of bourgeois or any other class who wanted to make some changes, some improvement, some reforms in their society, they just called themselves communism because communism was very popular. It was, in a way, it was good because everybody who wants to say that I want a better life would say that I'm communism. But in a way, in the other, from other angle, it was not what we meant, what we should do as with the banner of communism, because communism is against the capitalism, is against a specific class which was called bourgeois. It's not for independence. It's not for national goals. So that thing was a real problem during the whole 20th century. In Cuba, we had something like this. In Albany, we had something like this. In all the Eastern Bloc, so to speak, with Russian type of communism, we had the same problem. With China, we had the same problem. And we were criticizing that even before establishing the Worker Communism Party. In this way, we didn't say anything new with the collapse, because before that, we had a Communist Party of Iran, and that party was based again, emphasizes its differences from Russian type of communism. But with the collapse of Russia, the whole world was concentrating that. The whole world was watching. The whole world had questioned what's happening. Is it really the end of communism? Is it really the end of fight for having an equal society, having emancipate the whole population, all those ideals that communism represented? Is it the end? Thatcherism at that time and Reaganism said, yes, it's the end. So don't have any hope anymore. It's done. Freedom meaning market freedom, meaning liberal bourgeoisie. At the best way is liberalism. That's all. That's all we have. There is no future different than what we tell you, what we determine for you. That was the thing. So the difference was our party, who was always criticizing that sort of communism, now had a worldwide audience. Everybody wanted to have some answers for some very basic, not only political but philosophical questions, if you will, that sort of thing. And so on that context, establishing the worker communism, not even only as a party, but as a new way of thinking, a new methodology, a new approach, a new, again, I mean the original approach that communism had in 19th century. That was what we tried to do, and we are still we are on that path, and we are still fighting to tell everybody that communism, as Marx meant, as a 19th century movement, social movement, is not what you saw in or still see in China or Russia before or anywhere. It is something which is, it's at its core has emancipation of the whole society, humanity. So that's what we try to translate to different practical platforms, different policies, different situation, and that sort of thing.
Why you are fighting the Islamic regime under the banner of worker communism?
You know that you call that sort of Islamic regime in Iran, or that sort of movement, political Islam. And I think that political Islam is some sort of solution for bourgeoisie in not only in Iran, now we can say in Middle East, some sort of having a new way of controlling and managing the society, even the old ways was not good anymore for the bourgeois class. You know, in Iran, that Khomeini came to power after a very radical revolution in '79, and in Afghanistan they were fighting Soviet Union at that time, who was in Afghanistan, controlling Afghanistan. So in both cases, it was against communism, either communism in a name, as we had in Russia, or a revolution that was very leftist and very radical in Iran. Although they strategically, they didn't like as such those Islamic forces, but they had no choice, no other choice. So they had to make Khomeini as a leader of revolution that had nothing to do with that revolution. Somehow they just push him forward, put it on forefront, and make Islamism as a way of freeing people of Iran from the Shah monarchy. That's what they said they did. And after that, during the last 4 decades, this sort of political Islamism just developed to a force even against West. Now they created something that is a problem for them as well, but still they have no other way. So the way that we look at the Islamic Republic in Iran, it is a bourgeois way of controlling the society, keeping that class, that 1% of population, I mean the capitalists in power, although they have problems with that. I mean, international bourgeoisie has problem with that, but at the same time, they had no other choice. So that, in a way, is the last bourgeois state in Iran. They don't have any other outlook, any other future for what's happening in Iran. So we see it that way, or we always say either that's that hell that created in Iran, or if you want to have a better society, it had to be socialism. There is no other way.
In part 2, we are going to pick up on other issues that is more related to the political situation in Iran. Stay tuned.